Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Speak Up, where we discuss meaningful topics to help you grow and improve in every area of life, especially when it comes to your communication skills and overall personal development. I'm Ryan, and I'm here with my co-host, Priya. Today, we're diving into a topic that often gets overlooked in the hustle and bustle of daily life, but is absolutely essential for achieving long-term success: self-care. We're not just talking about bubble baths or spa days, although those can be nice, but self-care in a broader sense, involving your physical, mental, emotional, and even social well-being. Why is self-care so important, and how does it contribute to success? That's what we're unpacking today.
That's right, Ryan. Self-care often sounds like a luxury or something we squeeze into our schedules if there's time left over. But the reality is, it's one of the cornerstones of success. Without it, productivity dips, decision-making falters, and burnout looms closer. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore what self-care really means. Not just the superficial stuff, but actionable steps you can take every day. We'll also look at its connection to achieving success. Because if you don't care for yourself, how can you show up for the demands of your goals? Plus, we'll share practical strategies to make self-care a part of even the busiest routines, discuss the role mindset plays in prioritizing self-care, and tackle common barriers like guilt or lack of time. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it.
Absolutely. Whether you're aiming for professional success, academic goals, or personal achievements, self-care is the foundation that supports everything. So, by the end of this episode, we hope you'll not only understand the importance of self-care, but also feel empowered to integrate it into your life in a way that truly works for you. With that said, let's start by breaking down what self-care really is. Let's start with the basics. What is self-care? Often, when people hear the term, they immediately think of indulgent activities like a spa day or binge-watching a series after a tough week. But self-care goes far beyond that. At its core, self-care is about taking deliberate actions to maintain and improve your well-being across different areas of life. It covers four main aspects: physical, mental, emotional, and social care. Let me break it down briefly. Physical self-care involves activities that promote a healthy body, like getting enough sleep, eating nutritious food, and exercising regularly. Mental self-care, on the other hand, is about keeping your mind sharp and clear. This could mean learning new things, managing stress effectively, or even taking time to simply rest and recharge your mental energy. Emotional self-care revolves around processing and expressing your feelings in a healthy way, like practicing gratitude, talking to a trusted friend, or setting boundaries. Lastly, social self-care is about maintaining relationships and staying connected to others. These dimensions are interconnected, and neglecting one can throw off the balance of all the others.
That's a great overview, Ryan. And you know, what really stands out is that self-care is not just a feel-good activity. It's actually a necessity. Unfortunately, many people see self-care as selfish or optional, especially in cultures or environments that glorify constant productivity. But here's the thing. Neglecting self-care doesn't make you stronger or more efficient. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When you don't take care of your basic needs, your body and mind eventually force you to slow down, whether through burnout, stress, or even health issues. For instance, imagine skipping meals or pulling all-nighters to meet deadlines. Sure, you might get through a couple of days like that, but over time, the lack of proper nutrition or sleep will catch up with you. Your performance will drop and your mental clarity will suffer. So, far from being selfish, self-care is what allows you to consistently show up for yourself and others. Think of it as recharging your batteries so you can keep going.
Exactly, Priya. And let's talk about some practical examples of self-care in daily life. It doesn't always have to be elaborate or time-consuming. For physical self-care, something as simple as drinking enough water, taking short walks during your breaks, or stretching after sitting for long periods can make a huge difference. Mental self-care could involve reading for pleasure, practicing mindfulness, or even scheduling a break from social media. For emotional self-care, journaling or just taking 5 minutes to sit quietly and reflect on your feelings can help you process what's going on internally. And for social self-care, it could mean spending quality time with loved ones, having an open conversation with a friend, or even reaching out to someone you haven't spoken to in a while.
Those are great examples, Ryan. But I think we should also address some common misconceptions about self-care. One big myth is that it's all about luxury or pampering yourself. While there's nothing wrong with treating yourself now and then, self-care is often about doing the unglamorous things that make a long-term impact. For instance, sticking to a consistent bedtime might not feel exciting, but it's a powerful act of self-care. Another misconception is that self-care takes too much time or money. People think they need hours to meditate or a big budget for spa treatments. But that's not true. Self-care can be as simple as setting aside 10 minutes to stretch or eating a nutritious breakfast instead of skipping it. It's about what works for you and fits your lifestyle.
Absolutely, Priya. And I'll add one more misconception. Some people believe self-care is a one-time fix, but it's actually a habit, something you incorporate into your life regularly, not just when you're feeling overwhelmed. Think of it like maintaining your car. You don't wait for it to break down before you change the oil or check the tires, right? Self-care works the same way. It's about consistent, proactive actions that keep you running smoothly. And the good news is, once you make it part of your routine, it starts to feel natural, not like a chore.
Well said, Ryan. To sum it up, self-care is about taking responsibility for your own well-being, and it's a vital foundation for everything else you want to achieve in life. When we take care of ourselves, we're not just helping ourselves. We're also putting ourselves in a better position to support others and handle life's challenges.
Now that we've covered what self-care is, let's take a closer look at how it ties directly to success. When we think about success, whether it's in your career, academics, or personal life, we often focus on external factors, working harder, networking, or acquiring new skills. But one of the most underrated contributors to success is self-care. Why? Because self-care directly impacts three critical areas: productivity, decision-making, and creativity. Let's start with productivity. When you're well-rested, properly nourished, and mentally sharp, you naturally get more done in less time. Think about the days when you've skipped meals or stayed up late to finish something. Sure, you're working longer hours, but is the quality of your work really the same? Probably not. Self-care helps you work smarter, not harder, by ensuring your body and mind are operating at their best.
That's a great point, Ryan. And there's actual science to back this up. For example, studies have shown that chronic stress, which often results from neglecting self-care, literally changes the structure of your brain. Stress shrinks the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus and decision-making, and enlarges the amygdala, which governs emotions like fear and anxiety. This means that when you're constantly stressed, your ability to think clearly, make rational decisions, and even regulate your emotions is compromised. On the flip side, regular self-care practices like meditation, exercise, or even just taking breaks have been shown to lower cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone. Lower cortisol means reduced stress, better focus, and enhanced overall well-being. It's like giving your brain a tune-up every time you prioritize self-care.
Exactly, Priya. And it's not just about reducing stress, it's also about fostering creativity. When you give yourself time to recharge, you create space for your brain to make new connections. Some of the best ideas come to people during a walk, in the shower, or while they're relaxing, not while they're staring at a computer screen for hours on end. That's why many successful people emphasize the importance of self-care. Take Arianna Huffington, for example, the founder of the Huffington Post. She's a big advocate for getting enough sleep and taking breaks to avoid burnout. In fact, she wrote an entire book on the subject called The Sleep Revolution. And then there's Oprah Winfrey, who openly credits her success to daily mindfulness practices and making time for herself. These people aren't successful in spite of self-care, they're successful because of it.
That's so true, Ryan. And let's not forget the consequences of neglecting self-care. When we don't take care of ourselves, we're essentially running on fumes. This often leads to burnout, which isn't just feeling tired, It's a state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. Burnout affects not only your productivity, but also your relationships, your health, and even your sense of purpose. It's a downward spiral that's hard to recover from. And the scary part? Burnout doesn't happen overnight. It creeps up slowly, starting with small things like skipping meals or saying yes to too many commitments. Over time, these small compromises snowball into something much bigger.
That's a powerful reminder, Priya. And I think it's important to highlight that self-care isn't just about avoiding the negatives, like burnout. It's about unlocking your full potential. When you take care of yourself, you're better equipped to handle challenges, adapt to change, and seize opportunities. You have the energy to follow through on your goals and the clarity to make better decisions. Plus, you're more likely to inspire those around you. Think about it. When you see someone who's calm, focused, and thriving, doesn't it motivate you to take better care of yourself too?
Absolutely, Ryan. And I'd like to add that self-care also helps you build resilience. Life is unpredictable and challenges are inevitable. But when you're physically strong, mentally sharp, and emotionally balanced, you're better prepared to bounce back from setbacks. It's like having a safety net that catches you when things go wrong. And for anyone who thinks they're too busy for self-care, remember this. Taking time for yourself isn't a waste of time. It's an investment. The time you spend on self-care pays off in better performance, higher energy levels, and ultimately, greater success.
Well said, Priya. So to sum up this segment, self-care isn't a luxury. It's a necessity for anyone looking to achieve and sustain success. It boosts productivity, enhances decision-making, and sparks creativity, all while protecting you from burnout. And the best part? You don't have to overhaul your entire routine to make it happen. Small, consistent actions can lead to big results over time. All right, let's get into the practical side of self-care. We've talked about why it's important and how it links to success, but now we're going to focus on actionable strategies, things you can start doing today, even if you have a packed schedule. Let's start with physical self-care, which is the foundation for everything else. When you take care of your body, you're setting yourself up for better energy levels, focus, and overall performance. And it all begins with sleep. I know a lot of us tend to sacrifice sleep, thinking we can catch up later, or that it's the least important part of our day. But the truth is, consistent, quality sleep is non-negotiable. Studies show that adults need about 7 to 9 hours per night, and anything less than that affects memory, concentration, and even your immune system. So, creating a bedtime routine, like avoiding screens an hour before bed and sticking to the same sleep schedule, can make a big difference.
Absolutely, Ryan. And I'd like to add that regular exercise is another critical part of physical self-care. This doesn't mean you have to hit the gym for 2 hours every day. Even something as simple as a 20-minute walk or a quick workout at home can do wonders for your mood and energy levels. Exercise releases endorphins, which are natural mood boosters, and it also helps improve focus and reduce stress. Combine that with healthy eating habits, like incorporating more whole foods, fruits, and vegetables into your diet. And you've got a solid foundation for physical self-care. One simple trick is meal prepping on weekends, so you don't have to stress about what to eat during busy weekdays.
Great point, Priya. And while physical self-care is crucial, we can't overlook mental and emotional self-care. This is where practices like mindfulness, journaling, and positive affirmations come in. Mindfulness is about being present and fully engaged in the moment. It could be as simple as focusing on your breathing for a couple of minutes or doing a guided meditation. Journaling, on the other hand, helps you process your thoughts and emotions. You don't need to write pages. Just jotting down how you're feeling or what you're grateful for can shift your mindset. And then there are positive affirmations, which might sound cliché but are incredibly effective. Telling yourself things like, "I'm capable," or "I'm doing my best," helps rewire your brain to focus on strengths instead of flaws.
Exactly, Ryan. And while we're on the topic of emotional care, let's not forget the importance of creating boundaries. This brings us to time management, which is another big part of self-care. Saying no to unnecessary commitments can be life-changing. A lot of people overcommit out of guilt or fear of disappointing others, but remember, your time and energy are limited resources. Ryan, how do you personally manage this?
Good question, Priya. I've learned to prioritize by asking myself, is this really worth my time? If it's not a clear yes, then it's probably a no. One strategy that works well is blocking out time for self-care on your calendar, just like you would for an important meeting. For example, if you schedule a 30-minute workout or a 10-minute meditation, you're more likely to follow through. Also, delegating tasks and learning to say no, politely but firmly, has been a game changer. For instance, if someone asks for a favor that would stretch my schedule too thin, I'll respond with, "I'd love to help, but I can't commit to this right now." Simple, respectful, and effective.
I love that, Ryan. And another area that's often overlooked is social self-care. Humans are social beings, and maintaining relationships is a key part of overall well-being. This doesn't mean you need a large circle of friends, but it does mean prioritizing quality connections. For example, scheduling a coffee chat with a friend, calling a family member, or even joining a community group can help you feel connected and supported. And don't be afraid to seek help when you need it, whether it's talking to a trusted friend or seeking professional guidance. Sometimes reaching out is the best form of self-care.
That's such an important point, Priya. And for those listening who are thinking, this all sounds great, but I don't have time, let's talk about how to fit self-care into a busy life. One strategy is habit stacking, pairing a self-care activity with something you're already doing. For instance, you could do deep breathing exercises while commuting or listen to a mindfulness podcast while cooking. Another tip is starting small. If you're overwhelmed by the idea of a full workout, just start with 5 minutes of stretching. Small actions build momentum, and before you know it, self-care becomes a natural part of your routine.
That's so true, Ryan. And another tip I'd suggest is using reminders. Set alarms or use apps to nudge you to take breaks, drink water, or step outside for fresh air. And don't underestimate the power of taking micro breaks throughout the day. Even a 1-minute pause to breathe deeply or stretch can help reset your mind and body. Remember, self-care doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be consistent. Start where you are and build from there.
Exactly, Priya. Self-care isn't about overhauling your life overnight. It's about making small, consistent changes that support your well-being. Coming up next, we'll explore the role of mindset in self-care and how shifting your perspective can make all the difference.
One of the biggest barriers to self-care is mindset. Many people struggle to prioritize their well-being because they believe they don't deserve it, or that it's not as important as their work, family, or other responsibilities. But here's the truth. Your willingness to engage in self-care is directly tied to your perception of self-worth. If you believe you're valuable and worthy of care, you're far more likely to make time for it. On the other hand, if you constantly put yourself last, you're sending a message to yourself that your needs don't matter. And this isn't just about how you feel. It's about how you perform. When you treat yourself with respect and kindness, you build the confidence and resilience needed to achieve success. It starts with shifting your mindset from, "I'll take care of myself when I have time," to, "I make time for self-care because I'm worth it."
Absolutely, Priya. But one of the biggest mindset traps we fall into is the glorification of constant work, what's often referred to as hustle culture. We're taught to believe that the harder and longer we work, the more successful we'll be. It's almost like rest and self-care are seen as signs of weakness or laziness. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Think about it. If you're working 12 or 14-hour days without a break, how sharp are you really by the end of it? Your productivity, creativity, and decision-making all suffer when you're running on empty. Studies have shown that taking breaks, getting enough sleep, and even stepping away from work for short periods can significantly boost productivity. Hustle culture might promise quick wins, but it's not sustainable. Long-term success requires balance, and that balance comes from embracing self-care.
Exactly, Ryan. And this is where self-compassion comes in. For many of us, the biggest obstacle to self-care isn't external, it's internal. We're often our own harshest critics, telling ourselves we're not working hard enough or that we don't deserve a break until we've checked every box on our to-do list. But self-care starts with self-kindness. It means forgiving yourself when you make mistakes, recognizing your limits, and treating yourself like you would a close friend. If your friend was exhausted or overwhelmed, you wouldn't tell them to keep pushing. You'd encourage them to rest and take care of themselves. Why should it be any different for you?
That's such a powerful point, Priya. And for anyone wondering how to build a more positive mindset around self-care, there are a few tools that can help. First, affirmations are a simple but effective way to reframe your thinking. Phrases like, "Taking care of myself helps me succeed," or "I am worthy of rest and balance," might feel awkward at first, but they reinforce healthier beliefs over time. Second, focus on your strengths rather than your shortcomings. Acknowledging what you're good at can boost your confidence and motivate you to maintain the habits that support your well-being. And finally, practice gratitude. Taking a few moments each day to reflect on what you're thankful for can shift your mindset from scarcity, feeling like you never have enough time or energy, to abundance, realizing that you have the tools you need to thrive.
That's great advice, Ryan. And I'd add that mindset shifts don't happen overnight. It takes consistent effort to challenge negative beliefs and replace them with positive ones. One way to make this process easier is by surrounding yourself with supportive people. Whether it's friends, family, or even mentors, the people around you can reinforce the idea that self-care is important and help you stay accountable. Another tip is to celebrate small wins. Every time you choose to prioritize your well-being, even in a small way, acknowledge it. Whether it's taking a 5-minute walk, drinking an extra glass of water, or saying no to something that doesn't serve you, these actions matter. They add up and gradually rewire your brain to see self-care as essential, not optional.
Exactly. And let's not forget that mindset isn't static. It's something you can cultivate and strengthen over time. By making small, consistent efforts to prioritize your well-being, you'll not only feel better, but also perform better in every area of life. Self-care isn't just about what you do. It's about how you think about yourself and your time. As we've discussed, self-care is essential for success. But let's face it, knowing its importance doesn't always make it easy to prioritize. Many of us face barriers that prevent us from consistently taking care of ourselves. Some of the most common excuses we hear are, "I don't have time," "I feel guilty when I focus on myself," or even, "It's just not part of my culture or upbringing." These are valid feelings, but they often stem from deeper beliefs or habits. To overcome them, the first step is identifying what's really holding you back. Ask yourself, is it a lack of time, or is it about how you're allocating your time? Is guilt coming from a belief that self-care is selfish? Once you understand your personal barriers, you can start addressing them directly.
That's so true, Ryan. Let's start with the excuse, "I don't have time." This is probably the most common one, but if we're being honest, it's often about priorities rather than time itself. We all have 24 hours in a day, and how we use that time reflects what we value. If you can spend 30 minutes scrolling through social media or binge-watching a show, you can certainly set aside a fraction of that time for self-care. One practical solution is habit stacking, pairing a self-care activity with something you're already doing. For example, while waiting for your coffee to brew, you could do a quick stretch. Or, if you're commuting, you could listen to a mindfulness podcast. These small actions don't require extra time. They just make better use of the time you already have.
That's a fantastic point, Priya. And then there's guilt, which can be a tougher barrier to overcome because it's emotional rather than logistical. Many people, especially caregivers or those in demanding jobs, feel guilty when they focus on themselves. But let me put it this way. If you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of others effectively? Think of the classic airplane safety instruction. Put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Self-care isn't selfish. It's a way to ensure you can show up fully for the people and tasks that matter most. One way to combat guilt is to reframe self-care as an investment, not just in yourself, but in your ability to contribute to the world around you.
Exactly, Ryan. And another big barrier is cultural or societal expectations. In some cultures or communities, there's a strong emphasis on self-sacrifice, where putting others first is seen as a virtue. While generosity and service are admirable, they shouldn't come at the expense of your health and well-being. It's important to challenge these norms by recognizing that you can care for others more effectively when you're healthy and balanced yourself. One practical tip is to start small. You don't have to overhaul your lifestyle overnight. Just set aside 10 or 15 minutes a day for something that recharges you. Once you see the benefits, it becomes easier to expand that time without feeling like you're neglecting other responsibilities.
Great advice, Priya. Another practical solution I'd suggest is using reminders. Sometimes we don't avoid self-care intentionally, we just forget to prioritize it amidst the chaos of daily life. Setting alarms on your phone or using an app to remind you to take breaks, hydrate, or stretch can help. Another strategy is creating visual cues. For example, keeping a water bottle on your desk or placing a yoga mat in a visible spot can serve as a gentle nudge to take action.
And let's not forget the importance of making self-care non-negotiable. Treat it like an appointment you can't cancel. If you have a meeting with a boss or a doctor, you wouldn't skip it, right? Apply the same mindset to self-care. Block out time on your calendar, even if it's just 15 minutes, and honor that commitment. It might feel strange at first, but the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit. Another idea is to involve others. Tell a friend or family member about your self-care goals so they can help hold you accountable.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remind everyone that barriers to self-care aren't fixed. They're challenges that you can work through with the right mindset and strategies. Whether it's lack of time, guilt, or societal pressures, there's always a way to make self-care fit into your life. It's about being creative and consistent. Up next, we'll tie everything together and give you some final thoughts to help you take action. Stay tuned.